Probably not. I think they would strongly discourage it at the moment. I mean, clearly, if the situation advanced what became a major disaster, Shia being killed as well, then I think it would be very difficult to stop militant groups who are not necessarily under the control of the central government in Tehran getting involved. But I think at the moment, after that terrible war in the 1980s, the 8-year war, the Iranians have no problem getting involved with the government in this mess. I think they're quite relieved, although they dare not say it publicly, that the US is going in to sort out Saddam, because they've always feared that they may be a target on his hit list at some stage in the future.
And finally, I'm wondering if you would see that the outcome of this conflict could potentially lead to a major shift in U.S. Iran relations.
I don't think that this is going to see a major thaw of relations. I think this is a temporary alliance rather than a fundamental shift in policy.
Alex, thank you.
My pleasure.
Alex Standish is editor of Jane's Intelligence Digest. He spoke to us from London.
A siege of Baghdad. What challenges await, and how will Allied troops conduct the critical fight for control of Iraq's capital?
That's ahead, and later, health officials struggle to halt the spread of SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome.
And remembering former Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan.
There's more coming up here and now.
From Boston University, this is WBUR, Boston's NPR news station. Stay with WBUR throughout the day for full coverage of the military action in Iraq. And go to our website, WBUR.org, for further coverage, including photographs and maps of Iraq. We're funded by you, our listeners, and by Mercury Computer Systems, producing high-performance stream computing solutions for today's image and signal processing challenges. www.mc.com. And ThoughtForms, recently named Custom Builder of the Year by Custom Home Magazine. Their work can be viewed at thoughtforms-corp.com. And Pal Restaurant in Watertown, home of the falafel sandwich, selected as one of 16 sandwiches nationwide for the PBS show entitled Sandwiches You Will Like. Sunny this afternoon and middle 50s. Tonight it'll be cloudy and 30s. Tomorrow partly sunny and 50s once again. It's 55 in Boston at 12:21.
I'm Robin Young.
I'm Bill Delaney.
It's here and now.
From the beginning of the U.S.-led war in Iraq, the central strategic objective has been the same, Baghdad. At this hour, U.S. forces continue to mass outside the city. Right now, it seems the most optimistic scenario contemplated by U.S. planners has not played out. There's been no Iraqi coup, no mass surrender of Republican guards. So Baghdad, home to 6 million Iraqis, a quarter of the population, a massive city spread over 2,000 square miles of flat land on either side of the Tigris River. How will this city, roughly the size of Los Angeles, fall? We're joined in the studio by Colonel Kalev Sepp, formerly with the U.S. Special Forces. Thank you again for being with us, Colonel.
Thank you, Bill.
And joining us by phone is Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, U.S. Army, also retired, and author of Beyond Terror, Strategy in a Changing World. Welcome, Colonel.
Delighted to have a chance to talk to you and your audience.
Colonel Peters, thanks. How does this happen? Do U.S. forces go in and take Baghdad street by street, building by building?
No, absolutely not. Baghdad ultimately will fall from within, not from without. All these wild claims you hear that somehow Baghdad will be Stalingrad on the Euphrates, a bloodbath for American troops, are simply wrong. We are not going to engage in street-by-street, house-to-house fighting. Now, there certainly may be some local incidents of urban warfare for specific objectives, but we have time, if the regime does not collapse after the series of battles that are looming right now on the outskirts of Baghdad, then we will patiently draw a cordon around the city over a matter of weeks, if that's what it takes, over a couple months, if that's what it takes. And once Baghdad is essentially surrounded, remember, at that point, we can focus virtually all of our national intelligence resources on it. We'll have special operations teams roaming the back alleys and hallways of Baghdad. We'll have Iraqi agents in there. We'll be able to do very precise targeting. As we capture more of these Iraqi generals and colonels, and many are surrendering right now, by the way, we interrogate them. Then we learn, yes, that's where the secret bunker is that we never found. But we will not waste American or Iraqi civilian lives by creating a battle within Baghdad.
Yet, Colonel Sepp, down along a 300-mile line, our troops are being harried by much more resistance. Pentagon officials have admitted to some news organizations than they expected. Do we have enough soldiers in country to confront this city of Baghdad and still deal with all the other military operations and confrontations going on south of Baghdad?
This is clearly a growing concern among the senior military leadership, and a siege of Baghdad, to expect it to be effectively surrounded by perhaps only 30,000 combat troops, is something that remains in the theoretical range. This is a bit like Henry V at the siege of Harfleur. He's a long way from the sea, and in fact, there's another side to this, a darker scenario. That time is not on our side. As long as Baghdad stands, all the outlying cities that we're currently having difficulties with, Basra, Turkey, Mosul, may well stand as well and require more troops to be drawn to battles there.
I think really Colonel Sepp and I are very close to agreement. I really think we need more troops. The one strategic miscalculation of this war that really has troubled me is the fact that Secretary of Rumsfeld put a troop cap on and give General Franks all the soldiers for whom he asked. Now we're rushing troops in. More are arriving. The 4th Infantry Division will get there. So we need to, not be precipitous. Haste makes waste, especially in war. Take our time and do it right.
Colonel Sepp, I ask you, a siege of Baghdad, why would not these troops just resist and resist and resist? That does create problems if this goes on too long, does it not?
That's exactly one of the dark scenarios, that in that time that the city, even if it is effectively cordoned off, that the troops loyal to Saddam will find themselves in the context of the Arab world reveling in their status as heroes, and this will further extend the siege. And then what's just happened in Basra is something of an indicator that the option of being able to wait outside of Baghdad for an internal collapse may not be an option. If there is an uprising inside Baghdad that seems to be being crushed by the internal security forces of Saddam Hussein, if we do nothing, if we do not fight our way into the city to help that uprising, then once again the scenario goes completely black.
Yesterday a very important positive development happened that people kind of missed. When we all heard about that column of up to 1,000 vehicles leaving Baghdad, that wasn't tanks and armored personnel carriers. Those were the Fedayeen, secret policemen, the very people Saddam needs to continue terrorizing Baghdad. He is desperate. I don't think people realize how badly the war is going for Saddam. So, while I don't want to be a Pollyanna, I remain very much an optimist.
But Ralph Pierce, I want to ask you, why will a city fall if the people within it still have water, still have electricity? If you're too humane in a siege, why would a city fall?
Well, the city will fall because we will be able to focus on that city, and we will find Saddam and his henchmen one by one.
Colonel Sepp, just to finish that, let me throw out one more wild card. Chemical weapons. What if he uses them?
At the tactical level, the troops have a very simple approach. They're ready for them to be used. And it's very difficult to get the concentrations necessary to have a very effective military impact.
Chemical weapons, doesn't matter whether we use them or not, as long as the coalition succeeding in the siege of Baghdad.
Well, it helps us actually, because he uses chemical weapons. The world sees he has, he exposes himself. And one way or another, we're going to win, and we're going to keep this fight going relentlessly until it's over.
I still wonder sometimes about Saddam Hussein and the people around him in a bunker somewhere 6 months from now.
To return to the image of Henry V at the walls of Harfleur, Shakespeare has him deliver a speech to the mayor, and he threatens the complete destruction of his town and slaughter of all its inhabitants. And it's at that point that the mayor opens the gates and Henry enters the city. It would be hard to imagine that if he had been catapulting bags of grain over the walls to feed the citizens, that would have been the outcome.
I'm a Shakespeare fan myself, and we are much less Henry V and much more Prospero.
I want to thank both of our colonels. Kalev Sepp, Special Forces Colonel, retired. Thank you, Kalev.
Thank you, Bill.
And Ralph Peters, retired Lieutenant Colonel and author of Beyond Terror, Strategy in a Changing World. Thank you for joining us, Ralph.
My
Peters.
pleasure. Thank you.
Stay with us. There's more ahead, here and now.
From Boston University, this is WBUR, Boston's NPR news station. Coming up at 1 o'clock, BBC will bring us the latest on Iraq and the world scene. We're funded by you, our listeners, and by Studio 180, integrating design and technology to deliver strategically focused websites on web at studio180.com. American Airlines offering a new way to travel between Boston and Washington, D.C. on American Eagle regional jets with 7 flights every business day to Ronald Reagan National Airport. And European Watch Company, where timepieces may become heirlooms for the next generation. A distinctive collection of 5 watches available at their Newbury Street Gallery or